All right, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar with Eric Morgan of Roux Advertising. Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good morning or good afternoon, depending upon where you are. My name is Eric Morgan of Roux Advertising. We're a New Orleans-based ad agency, and we specialize in legal marketing. I've come to the realization that I'm entering my fourth decade of advertising, and I've spent a lot of time helping clients see the bigger picture and understand what marketing is about, what marketing teams are about, what they should be doing, and how they can use marketing to accomplish what they want to for their brand. And these days, one of the big things that's going around there is fractional CMOs, marketing advisors. They're very popular, and they play a significant role for law firms and marketers in general, and quite frankly, any law firm size. So today, I want to talk a little bit about what an advisor does, what marketing advisors do, and the benefits that you might be able to get from one. So I'm going to jump through real quick an agenda, just talk about the concepts, values and benefits, the areas of focus, and then sequence of work. Real quick, the concept, you hear the term fractional CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, you hear marketing advisor. So I wanted to kind of explain what they are. And an easy way to think about them is their involvement in the law firm, the role when it comes to leadership and how they act with leadership, and then also the responsibilities within the organization. Case in point, fractional CMOs, chief marketing officers, they work internally among the marketing team and ownerships. Um, they do manage staff, so they have a responsibility there with staff. They work, they're directly within the org chart, so to speak, and they hold responsibilities and accountability. And they're involved in the execution, so they're actually part of the team. On the flip side, marketing advisors, they're more of an external player, kind of a dotted line, if you will, with teams and ownership. The role more is about guiding to get to goals and strategies, tasks, and execution. It's the same thing, but instead of them being really involved in it, they're more of a guide, obviously, advisor. They don't have a direct role in the management of people. They do sit outside of the org chart in some cases, and it's less of an accountable day-to-day function. So speaking about like where do they sit, here's how a fractional CMO or a marketing advisor would fit among a team. Depending upon your firm, you might have an associate or a paralegal, administration, finance, and a marketing department. And quite frankly, some law firms have a marketing department, some don't. But in some cases, if they don't have a marketing person and the owner wears the hat from a marketing standpoint, that's fine too. What a fractional CMO would do is actually be in your org chart. They are your chief marketing officer. They just happen to be fractional or part-time or contract. So they have responsibilities. They oversee the team of a coordinator, or if you got a PPC manager or social media coordinator on team. They have direct reports, as you can see. They report directly, just as if your finance people would be. From a marketing advisor, they're pretty much outside of the org chart, so to speak. They do work alongside all the same people, managing attorney, the owner. They work with a marketing person if you have that person on staff, or if you have a whole team, they work with them, but they're just not directly in that line, that chain of command, if you will. There's really not a right or a wrong solution or structure there. It's really a case-by-case basis. And, when you think about what your 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan looks like for the firm and growth, and who are the right people that need to be on your org chart, it can be any scenario that I just kind of went through. And I think the conversation that we're going to have over the next few minutes is going to shed a lot more light on which one might be right for you or how to interact with them. So just remember, there's no right or wrong. It's just what's perfect for you all. Real quick, just a run through of the value and benefits. take a few minutes to just understand how this all fits. So, the reality is that you have a law degree, and as we've talked to attorneys around the country, they all hit this point of realization from going, all right, I'm a lawyer, I got a law degree hanging on the wall, and it happens in every industry. Things change, and it's summed up if you ever read the book The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, that there are three personality types. There's the technician, and that's you all. Y'all are attorneys, you have a law degree. There's the manager and the entrepreneur. The technician, you know how to get the law work done. But as you grow, you have your own firm. These other challenges arise when you thought, hey, I'm just going to practice law, but now you have a firm, so you have to run the firm. You got to design a business strategy. You got to create a marketing strategy. And then you have to oversee all the the execution of those things. And look, that's just the marketing context. There's people, and there's, if you own a building, there's the property side of it. And the list goes on and on. So what happens is you begin to realize that there are gaps that are in your firm. There are gaps with the team, the skills you have, and so forth. And it's natural. But the reality is that a marketing advisor would come in and help address those gaps. If it's people, it's who do you hire? What skills do they need? If it's processes, what processes should be worked on next? They work to build a program, and the program allows you to then say, all right, great, here's how we're going to fill these gaps. From a planning standpoint, this is what it's going to look like. Here's how we're going to execute everything. And then they're going to also quantify it all. They're going to do this through their experience that they work with other firms, other industries, because this is not exclusive to the legal world. And what they see works for other brands, other companies, based on the size or the dynamics that are going on with that firm, and share what they've learned over the time period. But ultimately, it's this. I have gaps in my operations, marketing side, obviously. They're going to work to fill the gaps, help work, build a plan, oversee the execution, and quantify it. So that way, when you talk about a cost per lead, you talk about a cost per case, you can prove that, look, this is working. The marketing initiatives that we're doing, the advertising initiatives that we're doing is paying off. And in the context of marketing, there's a lot of these things that need to be addressed. Do we hire senior people? Is it a junior person I need? Is it a graphic designer? Is it social media? The marketing advisor role would help kind of reveal what's the next step. And yesterday maybe 2 days ago, I was talking with a law firm owner, and he's doing the heavy lifting, quite frankly, when it comes to some marketing stuff. And he shouldn't be. He's trying to balance meeting with clients, run that firm, doing the marketing, shooting videos. And so an advisor would come in that case and explain how to break that pattern, how they can analyze their staff, determine who can take several items off the owner's plate and shift to the people who actually probably could do it better and should be doing it. This advisor role is going to have expertise, or should have expertise, in a lot of areas. And we're talking about marketing here, so the right program is going to really revolve around and focus on four core areas: people, strategy, execution, and cash. And step one is just an assessment and audit to look at where the firm is, what the firm needs, and go through these verticals, so to speak, and say, all right, here's where we need to focus our attention in Q1, or the first month, or the first couple of months. And the outcome, really, when it comes to it, is that these benefits and values, it's pretty wide ranging, is that you get this personalization around your firm. You learn processes, how to fill these gaps that exist. And they exist for everybody, every firm, every business in the world. But the benefit is you fill these gaps and you get to produce, accountability. You get to generate cost savings. And there are, tests and proven methods that eliminate the pain that, every business owner, everybody that's running a business, the pain they experience. And I Promise you, you're not alone. And it brings clarity on how to proceed. Um, the next section is just areas of focus. I just really want to kind of dive into this and tell you about best practices, maybe what to look for, give a few examples of what a program could look like. So, determining the areas of focus starts with what we call, and this is, internal to Roux Advertising, we call it client gateways. And these are the parts, the kind of the points of entry that bring, a law firm or any marketer to our door. They're the products that we deliver for our clients, and they can be summed up in three things. One is around, positioning and strategy, and that's this brand realization. We have a lot of people come to us and say, I don't think my firm or my brand is positioned appropriately, and so we kind of use that as a starting point. There's the campaign experience that revolves really around better ways to engage customers and move those customers, those potential clients, to action. And the third is this growth multiplier, which comes into play when someone needs to optimize their campaign and really get more outcome from their investment. And so with these 3 points, we then have an understanding of, okay, what the needs are, and then we're able to use them to gravitate towards some very specific areas, whether it's staffing or systems and infrastructure or analytics. And they all traditionally should link back to those pillars of, people and strategy and execution and cash. So for an example, if there's a people need when we get into it and start assessing, um, we bring up this program that says, all right, resource planning. Let's talk about it. Who do we have on the team? Who's external that we might be able to bring in? What are the skills that are needed, and what does it look like? How can we maybe source new people? These are perfect starting point from a marketing advisor. And as you get into it, we're talking about maybe specific skills. The program might lead to what we call a scorecard, saying that, look, if we have a need to develop certain skills, the scorecard's going to say, through measurable accountabilities and technical competencies, this is what an A player for the law firm looks like, and we want to hire to fill this. Or if we already have somebody on board that might have the potential, we want to invest in them. We want to train them. We want to get them educated on certain areas and strengthen some of their weaknesses. So that way they can gravitate towards this A player structure. And that's part of the, resource planning. When it comes to systems and infrastructures, they are super critical for all industries and all marketers, and you all know firsthand. But really, the focus really is about, what's in place. What's connected? What information can we capture? What does the workflow look like to get the information out of those tools and systems so that we can use it to guide decision making? And it's a complex area. It's challenging to make these processes speak to each other. But part of a marketing advisor program would be to come in, shed some light on what it could look like, steer the conversation, steer the planning of what tools are necessary, what tools may be necessary today because your law firm is just starting versus 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and have that plan. So that way you're ultimately solving infrastructure problems and getting the most out of these tools. Um, Positioning and strategy. That's another area that's a big component of this. And when you think that there's 400,000 or more law firms in the United States, your job is to be distinctive. Your job is to stand alone and own a particular space in the consumer's mind. And an advisor can contribute to that conversation around purpose and promise and what the goals are and what's going to be your go-to-market strategy. Why are you going to market, and who does it matter to? Ultimately, who's going to be your customer? And part of that program is, and this is very business oriented, but it's a SWOT analysis. What are your strengths and weaknesses internally? And then what are your external opportunities and threats. It could also lead to, once you define purpose and position, what does your ideal law firm client look like? What does a prospect look like? What's the value of that client? And how many clients do you have now? How many clients do you want to get next quarter, next year, as you grow to those growth goals? And how many clients do you need to get in on a monthly basis? And what's that cost per acquisition that you're willing to pay to get those clients? And as you start talking about these clients, you start getting the shape of who that core audience is, who they are, what their needs are, what interests or habits they might have. Which, the beauty of this is that when you start coming to a point of clarity on who these people are, you start having a lot of other decisions made. They kind of fall into place. Is, all right, I know who they are, I know what their pain points are, I know what their lifestyle is and their behaviors. Now I know what to say to them because I know who they are and I know what they're interested in. And now I know how to get their attention. And now I know what media channels to utilize. So from a, overall, just kind of a positioning and strategy standpoint, a lot of these things kind of fall into place through the course of working with, a marketing advisor, a fractional CMO could come in and help. Um, Another area, once you get that brand position established, is the true kind of roll your sleeves up marketing and advertising standpoint. The position and strategy talk, that's been done. And now it's, what does that advertising look like? Well, you've already covered your goals for the first year, year one, year three, year five, for instance, and it might be signed so many cases, increase the number of cases you're signing by 10 or 15 or 20%. Well, a marketing advisor, fractional CMO is going to want to break those down into, bite-sized kind of initiatives so that we can say, all right, great. If we're going to do this in 1 year, by the end of 2025, what are the pieces that we need to have in place, in Q1, Q2, Q3, and so forth, that are going to allow us to realize these goals? What is this initiative? How is it going to be measured? Who owns it? Who's it going to be assigned to? And when is it due? The program structure kind of, this eliminates the worry of what should I be doing, as an owner, um, or who's doing what, are things actually getting done? And this is, really critical because you put it in these positions of quarterly intervals, and allows you to manage them better. Now, you still have a campaign running, you still have a phone ringing, you still have cases that are getting signed. But if you're going to grow, if you're going to, evolve, you've got to put that roadmap together. And quarterly priorities take a play a significant role in this whole initiative to get you to that next level. And part of that would be, all right, what's the next level look like? Great. The marketing advisor is going to keep things like a customer journey in the conversation, because marketing's purpose, remember, is to shape behaviors. And an advisor is going to want to make sure that those quarterly initiatives, they roll up to something. They're tied to something. They are helping grow a brand. They're help growing the law firm, and they want to make sure that they are directly tied to an audience member, that customer, that potential customer, that says, if we're doing these initiatives, these people will move through that customer journey. And they'll go from, being injured in an accident all the way to calling your law firm, hiring your law firm, and becoming an advocate of your law firm after they've gone through that whole process. And that's what these quarterly initiatives are about. That's what, this program that a marketing advisor brings to the table, that says, look, this is how you bring this all together. You've got this goal, you got these quarterly initiatives, but the initiatives need to pinpoint and connect to, the customer. So that way you can bring this full circle and say, the customer, the potential client of the firm, did sign with us. And look, almost every law firm has this issue about, what media type should we be running in? What should we be investing in? And based on that positioning, based on the strategy, that you created in the previous steps, as well as, what my 1 year goal is, this exercise becomes a lot easier. It starts allowing you to say, all right, if we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and if there's a quarterly initiative that says we're going to increase our share of voice on social, then your investment by media type starts kind of painting a picture. That audience profile of we're going to grow with certain MBA cases, then you start understanding who that client is that you need to attract. And the media plan and this chart starts evolving because you know who they are, what they like, and how they interact with media channels. And so this sequence of events starts happening and pictures start getting painted. Well, now you got 36% of your investment needs to be in social, 21% in native, or 17% in display, in video and so forth. And the beauty of going through such a program and having such a role at your side, whether it's a fractional CMO who's actually in the role, or a marketing advisor who's kind of, external but guiding, the beauty of it really is understanding why you're doing these media channels from a marketing standpoint, or why you're doing these particular types of creative ads. And it's not because your competitors are doing it. Really, it's about how they tie into your brand, the position. What makes you distinctive? What's your strategy? And that, one, everybody agreed to those things and it supports your 1 year goal. So there's this tremendous connection and just clarity that says, look, it prevents you from chasing shiny objects because those things other people are doing them. But instead, it's rooted in this structure that says, hey, this is why we're doing it. This is the math. We showing our work, and this is how we got here, and it's right for us. And that's the most important thing, not to chase other things because everybody else is doing it. Conversion and growth. Lastly, talking about what a program could look like. Um, it's important. You got to grow your law firm. Marketing advisors are about getting the most out of the business for you, for quite frankly, your family, your employees, your clients. But without growth, without hitting the goals and making sure that your 1 year, your 3 year, 5 year goals are one within reach, realistic, and you have these initiatives and you've broken them up in the quarterly kind of nuggets, and you have this path, a blueprint set. Without all of that, I mean, growth, you know, these are all obsolete. What can the firm do for you, whether it's a lifestyle goal, supporting your staff, doing great legal representation for your clients, without growth, and then a lot of this becomes obsolete. So the program really is going to focus on things like, KPI activity report, so that you can measure the most important things that need to be measured. You want to look at these things and create correlations. Use this kind of information to say, wow, when I do X and Y for social media or search and do an email blast or whatever the channels are that you get out of the strategy, I get this web traffic, I get these phone calls, I get these leads, I get these cases signed. You want to look at that correlation, and you want to use that kind of information to make sound, rational decisions that are smart, that obviously tie back into the strategy, tie back into your next level of quarterly goals, that your initiatives that you're trying to accomplish, to move the firm in the direction of what that 1 year, 3 year goal will be. When we're doing advisory work, I like to incorporate a pyramid metaphor where the most important thing at the top is, cost per case, or the number of cases, or the revenue of the cases are generated. And we look at it on a monthly basis. Everything underneath supports that tip of the pyramid. Everything has quarterly and annual initiatives tied to them with very specific goals, that honestly somebody owns. It's accountable, it's clear, and it's measured. The goal really is to have these quarterly initiatives down at the bottom about, you know, phone calls or clicks or engagement, and all these things that ladder up, that those will then convert to more clicks, convert to more phone calls, convert to more intakes or consults, convert to more cases signed. That's part of what a marketing program should be. the right fractional CMO, the right marketing advisor is, depending upon which one, is going to either drive it or kind of demonstrate it, lead conversations so that your team understands it, grasps it, and can build it. And quite frankly, in some cases, they built it on their own with the guidance of an advisor. Um, and with all that infrastructure, um, you know, under the guidance of, marketing advisor, you should have a pretty dashboard, one that tells you where you stand. If you're doing OTT, for instance, great, perfect. How is it performing? Are you getting the ROI that you should be getting? And more importantly, is the ROI exactly what you expected when you assigned this initiative to somebody on your team to say, this is what we should get out of our investment? And that's whether it's a click or it's calls or what have you. So that's part of this program. And it's not the, I wonder what we're doing next week, or, oh, should we be doing this? No, it's a plan. There's a game plan that says these are the things we should be doing. These are the things we should be getting out of them. This is who does them. This is when they're going to get done. This is to what degree they're going to get done. And you'll know to the cost and so forth. And then you're able to kind of hopefully have a little bit of clarity because it's just mapped out. Everybody's, marching to the same drummer. A little bit of sequence of work, how this falls into place over a timeline. And I've mentioned several times goals, 3-year, 5-year goals, 1-year goal. Everything that we would do from a marketing advisor would do should revolve around that business strategy. What are the goals of the firm? And what does that look like down the road? Great. You're going to grow your firm. And then let's build a marketing strategy that's structured around that's specifically designed to accomplish those goals, but then it's structured around quarterly or annual or monthly and even bi-weekly interactions with your marketing team. In each increment, there's going to be defined topics you'll review. You'll discuss where they stand, the progress of them. You'll discuss whether they're on track or off track, if they're performing the way we thought they were going to perform. And the part, the beauty of this whole thing is that the audit and assessment that would kick off the whole relationship, plus the goals of your business goals, shape this program. Most of the time we sit down with law firms and they're all over the place. Great. Let's stick everything on a wall. Let's prioritize it. And then we start working through to get these things accomplished. If it's a social media campaign, great. How does that fit in with the bigger picture? Who can own it? Who should own it? What does it look like? What are all the underlying tasks that need to happen before that social media campaign can get off the ground? We have prioritized that. And then we say, these are the pieces that need to be implemented before or to get to where we need to go. As you can see here, we break it up in annually, quarterly, monthly, biweekly. Some of these meetings are with the entire team. If there's a team, some are with, the attorney that runs the firm, the owner. Some are just, individuals that happen to be assigned a particular task. And in terms of what the interaction philosophy or the interaction pattern is, it really varies. We do it by in person. There's some Zoom phone calls, obviously email, text nowadays. But we find quarterlies and annuals tend to work better, especially when you're doing kind of like an annual reset, checking to see what's important, bigger picture, what the goals are, what the KPIs are going to be used to study success. So it does fluctuate a little bit, but I would encourage, if you all go down this path, to make sure that there is some in-person interaction. I mean, I know Zoom is a wonderful thing, and here we are, but there's a lot to be said for in-person. Be able to get in a room, bunch of giant sticky pads, and map out and prioritize and say, look, we have all these things that we need to accomplish. Which ones need to be moved to the top because those are the most important? From a month to month kind of basis, the interaction patterns vary. In some cases, it might be a couple of, 1 hour Zooms with the managing partner. Um, it might be, several 30 or 60-minute Zooms with just individuals that own very specific initiatives. And it might be the hot initiative for the month or the quarter. There might require a little bit more guidance and hand holding, troubleshooting. And then of course there are these very specific scenarios where some acute conversation might be needed by phone or Zoom around a hot topic that just needs to, it's stuck, it's stalled, but it just needs to get dealt with. And so, and those are one-offs. And these patterns, these communication patterns vary depending upon the scale of the firm, the size, the number of initiatives, the number of players that are involved. But I would suggest in working with with a marketing advisor is to keep an open mind. Because when we work with clients, and look, we're an ad agency, but what's happened is, we find ourselves assisting clients on a lot of these conversations that are not exclusively ad agency work, or they're not quite at that level where they want to advertise. And so we end up playing this role because we understand what their goals are and where they want to go, and we know how to kind of put all the pieces together and how to get there. So we ask them to keep an open mind because there's a lot of things that can be covered. There's a lot of these areas that they can focus on. Nothing is off the table. And I promise a lot of you all, hopefully you're thinking about these things and it's an overwhelming and anxious feeling. So you don't know where to start, and that's okay. And because there's a tremendous amount here. And again, it's not just legal advertising, it's everywhere. It's every business, every industry. And it's okay because there's a tremendous amount of work, but a program breaks those things down into kind of an order of prioritization, an order of operations, and it provides clarity and accountability on what should be done, how is it going to get done, who's going to own it, and so forth. And I mentioned the gaps, filling the gaps, and that's what a lot of people have, the realization of how do I get all this stuff done? I don't have enough time in the day, or I don't have enough people or skills, you know, then you create a plan and you help with the execution, and then you quantify the results. you know, that plan all kind of comes into place, and it's beautiful. But the addition to the organization and accountability and execution of such a program is that as time progresses, there's clarity in what's getting done, and there's proof that the gaps are being filled. And so part of it is this checklist of all these things that need to get done in week one, month one, quarter one, whatever the increments are. Some are easy, some are just sharing information, some are hard. You've got to create stuff from scratch. But the reality is that everybody's thinking about these, and I don't have enough time in the day. But going through a marketing advisory program allows you to kind of corral and wrangle all that information and get some order to it. And it's a weight lifted off of people. I see it firsthand when it's like, oh, I was with somebody Tuesday afternoon for a couple of hours going through some of this, and like, oh man, this is easy. This is not that hard. Once you break it down and start taking bite one, bite two, bite three, you know, there's just this weight that's lifted off. And honestly, it's a tremendous sense of accomplishment that's felt because you can look back and go, man, we did all these things. We checked all these boxes. And that's part of this program. And that's how to get some order and structure to this. Um, and if you took marketing or a business class back in college, you might remember this business life cycle. Different phases, your firm is going to need different initiatives or different skills or different people or different tools. This very much is this crawl, then walk, then run theory. And 99% of the time, you cannot do it alone. You can't get from introduction to growth to maturity to decline alone. You need other people. So what I would say is keep an open mind. Think about it. Look, even if it's just picking somebody's brain to help you get to that solve that next decision or figure out who that next hire is, or go all in and participate in a program because they they're fantastic and they're custom and they're scalable and they're personalized for you. But if any of this stuff is resonating with you, this would be a great opportunity for you to just jump into a marketing advisory program, because I think it's going to solve a lot of problems and it's going to help you get from each of these stages of the life cycle. Lastly, if you're curious about any of what I covered, or just want to read some great blogs, go to our new website. We just rolled out Roux, a new version of rouxadvertising.com. So please take a look at it. We got, hundreds of blogs and case studies on there. So take a look at it. I think you'll find some information in there. We talk about OTT, we talk about budgeting, strategy behind budgeting, all kinds of things that I'm sure have run through your head at one point or another. With that, thank you very much. I appreciate you giving me your time today. The conversation, I hope, shed some light on what the world of marketing and marketing advisors and fractional CMOs is all about. I'm happy to answer any questions. My contact is here on the screen, so call or email me anytime. I really do love talking about this. I tell everybody, call me anytime. I'm happy to support in any way. Thank you very much.